Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Episode 10. 7 days glided away, each one marking its course by the rapid alteration of Edgar Linton's state. Catherine guessed the dreadful possibility gradually ripening into certainty. She had not the heart to mention her ride when Thursday came round. I mentioned it for her, and obtained permission to take her. We discerned Linton watching at the same spot he had selected before. He received us with greater animation on this occasion. Not the animation of high spirits, though, nor yet of joy. It looked more like fear. It is late, he said, speaking with difficulty. Is not your father very ill? I thought you wouldn't come. Why won't you be candid? Cried Catherine. Why can you not say at once you don't want me? Linton shivered and glanced at her, half appealing, half ashamed. My father is very ill, she said. Why am I called from his bedside? Why didn't you send to absolve me from my promise when you wished I wouldn't keep it? For heaven's sake, Catherine, don't look so angry. Despise me as much as you please, but I'm too mean for your anger. Hate my father. Spare me. Nonsense, cried Catherine in a passion. Foolish, silly boy. And there, he trembles as if I were really going to touch him. Get off. I shall return home. Let go my frock. I pitied you for crying and looking so very frightened. Linton, don't! With streaming face and an expression of agony, Linton had thrown his body on the ground. He seemed convulsed with terror. Oh, he sobbed, I cannot bear it, Catherine. I dare not tell you, but leave me and I shall be killed. Dear Catherine, my life is in your hands. You have said you loved me, kind, sweet, good Catherine. Perhaps you will consent, and let me die with you. The old feeling of tenderness overcame her, and she grew thoroughly moved and alarmed. Consent to what? She asked. Tell me the meaning of this strange talk. You wouldn't injure me, Linton, would you? You wouldn't let any enemy hurt me if you could prevent it? But my father threatened me, gasped the boy, and I dread him, I dare not tell. I looked up and saw Mr. Heathcliff almost close upon us. He came straight to me and asked quietly, Edgar Linton is on his deathbed? Yes, my master is dying, I replied. That lad yonder seems determined to beat me. I'd thank his uncle to be quick and go before him. That boy ought to be in bed, under the hands of a doctor, I replied. He shall be in a day or two, muttered Heathcliff. But first, get up, Linton! Get up! He shouted. I will, father, he panted. Only let me alone. Oh, I shall faint. I've done as you wished. You would imagine I was the devil himself, Miss Linton, to excite such horror. Be so kind as to walk home with him, will you? He shudders if I touch him. Linton, dear, whispered Catherine, I can't go to Wuthering Heights. Papa has forbidden me. He'll not harm you. Why are you so afraid? I could never re-enter that house, he answered. I'm not to re-enter it without you. Stop, cried his father. We'll respect Catherine's filial scruples. Nelly, take him in. I must remain with my mistress, replied I. To mind your son is not my business. Come then, said Heathcliff to his son. Are you willing to return, escorted by me? He approached as if he would seize the fragile being, but Linton clung to his cousin and implored her to accompany him. How could she have refused him? We reached the house. Catherine walked in. I stood waiting till she had conducted the invalid to a chair, expecting her out immediately, when Mr. Heathcliff, pushing me forward, exclaimed, "Allow me to shut the door." He shut and locked it also. "You shall have tea before you go home," he added. "I am by myself. Hareton is gone with some cattle, and Zillah and Joseph are away. Miss Linton, take your seat by him. I give you what I have. The present is hardly worth accepting, but I have nothing else to offer. It is Linton, I mean. How she does stare! It's odd what a savage feeling I have towards anything that seems afraid of me. By hell, I hate them." "I'm not afraid of you," exclaimed Catherine. She stepped close up. "Give me that key," she said. "I wouldn't eat or drink here if I was starving." Heathcliff had the key in his hand on the table. She snatched at it. "Now, Catherine Linton," he said, "stand off, or I shall knock you down." Regardless of this warning, she captured his closed hand and its contents again. "We will go," she repeated, and finding that her nails made no impression, she applied her teeth pretty sharply. Heathcliff seized her and gave her a shower of terrific slaps on both sides of her head. I rushed on him furiously. "You villain!" I began to cry. A blow on the chest silenced me. "I know how to chastise children," said the scoundrel. "I shall be your father tomorrow, all the father you'll have in a few days, and you shall have plenty of that if I catch such a devil of a temper in your eyes again." Cathy ran to me, weeping aloud. Mr. Heathcliff made the tea himself. He poured it out and handed me a cup. "Wash away your ill feeling," he said. "I'm going to seek out your horses." Our first thought on his departure was to force an exit somewhere, but the kitchen door was fastened and the windows were too narrow. "Master Linton," I cried, "you know what your diabolical father is, and you shall tell us." "Papa wants us to be married," he said, "and he knows your papa wouldn't let us, and he's afraid of my dying if we wait, so we are to be married in the morning, and you are to stay here all night, and if you do as he wishes, you shall return home next day and take me with you." "You marry?" I exclaimed. "A little miserable monkey like you? You want whipping for bringing us here at all, with your cowardly whining tricks." "Stay all night?" "No," said Catherine. "Ellen, I'll burn that door down, but I'll get out." But Linton was up in alarm for his dear self. "Won't you have me and save me? Not let me come to the Grange? Oh, darling Catherine, you mustn't go and leave me after all. You must obey my father, you must." "I must obey my own," she replied, "and relieve him from his cruel worry. The whole night?" Our gaoler re-entered. "Now, Linton, get to bed." He held the door open for his son to pass. The lock was re-secured. Heathcliff approached the fire. Catherine looked up and instinctively raised her hand to her cheek. "Oh, you are not afraid of me. You seem damnably afraid." "I am afraid now," she replied, "because if I stay, Papa will be miserable, and how can I endure making him miserable when he... Mr. Heathcliff, let me go home. I promised to marry Linton. Papa would like me to, and I love him." "Miss Linton, I shall enjoy myself remarkably in thinking your father will be miserable. As to your promise to marry Linton, I'll take care you shall keep it, for you shall not quit this place till it is fulfilled." "Send Ellen, then, to let Papa know I'm safe," exclaimed Catherine, weeping bitterly. "Oh, marry me now. I'll marry him within this hour, if I may go to Thrushcross Grange afterwards. Oh, Mr. Heathcliff, you are a cruel man, but you're not a fiend." If Papa thought I had left him on purpose, and if he died before I returned, could I bear to live? I'm going to kneel here, and I'll not get up, and I'll not take my eyes from your face till you look back at me. No, don't turn away. Have you never loved anybody in all your life, Uncle? Never? Ah, you must look once. You can't help being sorry and pitying me.
Keep your fingers off and move, or I'll kick you, cried Heathcliff brutally. I'd rather be hugged by a snake. I detest you.
It was growing dark. We heard a sound of voices at the garden gate. Our host hurried out instantly. He had his wits about him. We had not. There was a talk of 2 or 3 minutes, and he returned alone.
It was 3 servants sent to seek you from the Grange, said Heathcliff. You should have opened a window and called out.
Then he bid us go upstairs to Zilla's chamber, and we were locked in as before. At 7 o'clock next morning, Heathcliff came for Catherine. I rose to follow, but he turned the lock again. I rattled the handle angrily, and Catherine asked why I was still shut up. He answered that I must try to endure it another hour, and they went away. At length I heard a footstep. The door was opened by Hareton, bringing food enough to last me all day, and there I remained the whole day, and the next night, and another, and another. 5 nights and 4 days I remained altogether, seeing nobody but Hareton once every morning. On the 5th afternoon, a different step approached. This time the person entered the room. It was Zilla. Dear Mrs. Dean, she exclaimed. I thought you were sunk in Blackhorse Marsh, and Missy with you, till Master told me you'd been found, and he'd lodged you here. Did Master save you, Mrs. Dean? Your master is a true scoundrel, I replied, but he shall answer for it. He needn't have raised that tale. It shall all be laid bare. What do you mean? asked Zilla. It's not his tale. They tell that in village, about you and your lass being lost in marsh. I told Master the rumour, and he said, if they have been in the marsh, they are out now. Nellie Dean is lodged at this minute in your room. You can tell her to go when you go up. Here is the key. The bog water got into her head. She would have run home quite silly, but I fixed her till she came round to her senses. You can bid her go to the Grange at once and carry a message from me that a young lady will follow in time to attend Mr. Linton's funeral. Edgar is not dead, I gasped. Oh, Zilla, Zilla! No, she replied. He's not dead. Doctor thinks he may last another day. I hastened below, for the way was free. On entering the house, I looked around for someone to give information of Catherine. The door stood wide open, but nobody seemed at hand. A slight cough drew my attention to where Linton lay on the settle. Where is Miss Catherine? I demanded. Is she gone? No, he replied. She's upstairs. She's not to go. We won't let her. You won't let her? Little idiot, I exclaimed. Direct me to her room immediately, or I'll make you sing out sharply. Papa would make you sing out if you attempted to get there, he answered. He says I'm not going to be soft with Catherine. She's my wife, and it's shameful that she should wish to leave me. He says that she hates me and wants me to die, that she may have my money. But she shan't have it, and she shan't go home. She never shall. She may cry and be as sick as much as she pleases. Master Heathcliff, I resumed, have you forgotten all Catherine's kindness to you last winter, when she came many a time to see you? And now you believe the lies your father tells? Did she come to Wuthering Heights because she hated you? You say she's sick, and yet you leave her alone, you who have felt what it is to be so neglected. You could pity your own suffering, but you won't pity hers." "I can't stay with her," he answered crossly. "She cries so. I can't bear it." "Is Mr. Heathcliff out?" I inquired. "He's talking to Dr. Kenneth," he replied, "who says uncle is dying at last. I'm glad, for I shall be master of the Grange after him, and Catherine always spoke of it as her house. It isn't hers, it's mine. Papa says everything she has is mine. She offered to give me all of her nice books and her pony if I would get the key of our room and let her out. But I told her she had nothing to give. They were all mine. And then she cried, and she looked so pale and wild, and I'm afraid of her." "You can get the key if you choose," I said. "Yes," he answered, "but I shan't tell you where it is." I considered it best to depart without seeing Mr. Heathcliff and bring a rescue for my young lady from the Grange. On reaching it, the astonishment and joy of my fellow servants to see me and to hear that their little mistress was safe was intense. I myself took the news to Mr. Edgar. How changed I found him! He lay waiting his death. "Catherine is coming, dear master," I whispered. "She is alive and well and will be here, I hope, tonight." I related our compulsory visit and detention at the Heights, and then I dispatched 4 men with weapons to demand my young lady of her gaoler. The 4 men came back, saying that Catherine was too ill to quit her room, and Heathcliff would not suffer them to see her. I scolded the stupid fellows for listening to that tale, and resolved to take a whole crowd of men up to the Heights at daylight, unless the prisoner were quietly surrendered to us. "Her father shall see her," I vowed. Happily, I was spared the trouble. A sharp knock at the front door made me hurry to open it. My own sweet little mistress fell on my neck, sobbing. "Ellen, Helen, is Papa alive?" "Yes," I cried. "Yes, my angel, he is. God be thanked you are safe with us again." She went upstairs to Mr. Linton's room. I couldn't abide to be present at their meeting. I stood outside the door a quarter of an hour and then entered. All was quiet. He died blissfully, murmuring, "I am going to her, and you, darling child, shall come to us." And he never stirred or spoke again. The evening after the funeral, we were seated in the library, when a servant rushed in and said that Heathcliff was coming through the court. He made no ceremony of knocking. He was master, and availed himself of the master's privilege to walk straight in. Catherine had risen with an impulse to dash out when she saw him. "Stop," he said. "No more running away. I'm come to fetch you home, and I hope you'll be a dutiful daughter and not encourage my son to further disobedience. You'll see by his look that he has received his punishment. Hareton says he shrieks in the night and calls you to protect him from me, and whenever you like your precious mate, or not, you must come. He's your concern now." "Why not let Catherine continue here," I pleaded, "and send Master Linton to her, as you hate them both?" "I'm seeking a tenant for the Grange," he answered, "and I want my children about me. Besides, that lass owes me her services for her bread. Make haste and get ready now." "I shall," said Catherine. "Linton is all I have to love in the world, and though you have done what you could to make him hateful to me and me to him, you cannot make us hate each other." She scornfully withdrew. I began to beg for Zilla's place at the Heights, offering to resign mine to her, but he bid me be silent, and then, for the first time, allowed himself a glance around the room and a look at the pictures. Having studied Mrs. Linton's, he said, "I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I got the sexton, who was digging Linton's grave,
to remove the earth of her coffin lid, and I opened it. I saw her face again. It is hers yet. But he said it would change if the air blew on it, so I struck one side of the coffin loose and covered it up. Not Linton's side, damn him. And I bribed the sexton to put it away when I'm laid there, and slide mine out too. I'll have it made so, and then by the time Linton gets to see us, he'll not know which is which."
"You were very wicked, Mr. Heathcliff," I exclaimed. "Were you not ashamed to disturb the dead?"
"Disturbed her," he replied. "No, she has disturbed me, night and day, through 18 years till yesternight. And yesternight I was tranquil. I dreamt I was sleeping the last sleep, with my heart stopped and my cheek frozen against hers. I was wild after she died, and praying her to return to me her spirit. I have a strong faith in ghosts, that they exist amongst us. The day she was buried, in the evening, I went to the churchyard. Being alone and conscious 2 yards of loose earth was the sole barrier between us, I said to myself, I'll have her in my arms again. If she be cold, I'll think it is the north wind, and if she be motionless, it is sleep. I got a spade and began to dig. It scraped the coffin. I fell to work with my hands. The wood commenced cracking, and I was on the point of attaining my object when it seemed I heard a sigh from someone above, close at the edge of the grave, and bending down, I knew no living thing in flesh and blood was by, but I knew Cathy was there. Not under me, but on the earth. A sudden sense of relief flowed from my heart through my every limb. Her presence was with me. It remained while I refilled the grave and led me home. I was sure she was with me, and I could not help talking to her. Having reached the heights, I rushed eagerly to the door. It was fastened, and Earnshaw and my wife opposed my entrance. I remember stopping to kick the breath out of him, and then, hurrying upstairs to my room and hers, I looked around impatiently. I felt her by me. I could almost see her. And yet I could not. She showed herself as often she was in life, a devil to me. And since then, I've been the victim of that intolerable torture. When I sat in the house, it seemed that on going out I should meet her coming in. When I went from home, I hastened to return. She must be somewhere at the Heights, I was certain. And when I slept in her chamber, I couldn't lie there, for the moment I closed my eyes, she was either outside the window, or sliding back the panels, or entering the room. And I must open my lids to see. And so I opened and closed them 100 times a night, to be always disappointed. Now, since I've seen her, I've made peace, a little." Mr. Heathcliff paused, and Catherine entered, announcing that she was ready. "Goodbye, Ellen," whispered my dear little mistress. As she kissed me, her lips felt like ice. "Come and see me. Don't forget." "Take care you do no such thing, Mrs. Dean," said her new father. "When I wish to speak to you, I'll come here."
I watched them from the window, walk down the garden. Heathcliff with rapid strides. He hurried her away.